Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi to our lecturer, Dr. Norima. And also, good afternoon to my new friend from China. Yeah? Though we are not unable to meet face to face, but we will be soon, hopefully, will be able to meet online. So my topic for today is regarding is based on my previous paper, is on the regression analysis of the GDP or gross domestic product. Okay, first let me the content of this is from starting from the introduction. We'll do the little bit of methodology, and we go through the findings, and lastly we go to the conclusion. Okay, so as an introduction here, so every country around the world has regarded its gross domestic product or GDP as extremely vital in order to pursue continuous development and advancement needed for its nation. So GDP is considered as a key indicator to measure income performance of a nation, because we know the level of development in every nation varies from one country to another worldwide. So because some countries we are categorized as developed countries, some as developing, and others as underdeveloped countries. All the categories are depending on their abilities to generate income for their countries. Okay, let me explain to you what is a GDP. When we say it's GDP or gross domestic product, it is defined as the market value of all final goods and services produced in an economy annually. So the value of GDP can be exchanged by macroeconomic components. Thereby, as main objective of this study is to see whether 5 macroeconomic variables, namely population, growth, fixed capital formation, labor force participation, and also government expenditure on health and education, really affect the real GDP in Malaysia. This particular study used the real GDP to adjust the inflation from the income in order to value all goods and services. So this study employs 30-year annual time series data. So as for the multiple regression model, it is stated as the GDP. GDP here is affected by the population, by the capital formation, by the labor force participation, and also the government expenditure on education, and also government expenditure on health. So these are the model that is being used in this study. Specifically, I explained the findings in terms of two criteria. The first is under the economic criteria, then second is under the statistical criteria. So let us first look at the economic criteria first, that is in terms of elasticity. So you want to see the effect of the dependent variables, that is the real GDP, whether when there is an increase or decrease in the value of independent variables, which is based on 5 variables that I mentioned earlier, that are the population, capital formation, labor, education expenditure, and also health expenditure. Then the second method is by looking at the statistical criteria, where I use the t-test and also f-test. That both are significant tests. So the test of significance is used for the purpose of testing whether these important independent variables in explaining the dependent variables at a certain confidence level. So here is the formula of T star. By rule of the decision making, according to T statistic, we will reject H now whenever the T star here is more than this value, meaning that the independent variables here are important in explaining the dependent variable at certain confidence level. So when we accept H null here, meaning that these variables are not significant in explaining the Y or the independent the dependent variable. So another statistical criteria is by using the F-test. So if the F star is larger than this formula here, so meaning that we can reject the H null, or otherwise we cannot reject the H null if the F star is smaller than this value. F star here, the value can be obtained from the table Fs. So here from the SPSS output, we can we will know the value of F star in the table ANOVA, or analysis of variance. Okay, let us take a look at this table of the elasticity findings. So from this table, for example, under the population here, we'll see, okay, how do we explain this thing? So we can see that the relationship between population and also real GDP is positive. See, the number is positive here. It means that when population increase, the real GDP will increase too. So how do we are saying here, by looking at these figures here, we know that every 3.636% increase in population will increase 2.7991% of real GDP in Malaysia. And then when we take a look at the capital, it is also shows the positive relationship between capital and also real GDP. So for every 0.257% of the increase in the gross fixed capital formation will increase 0.241% of real GDP. Okay, now we know that here it is different from these two variables. So under labor, contrastingly, the relationship between labor force participation, also real GDP, is a negative relationship, because for every 0.54% decrease in labor force participation will decrease 0.4004% in real GDP. So the same goes to education and health. It's also negative relationship between these variables and real GDP. Then we move at the findings based on t-test. Based on this significant test here, we'll see here that the t-star is more than critical value for population and also capital formation. Meaning that when it's more than the critical value, it means that we have to reject the H null. When we rejecting H null, meaning that population also capital formation is an important factor that affecting real GDP. Whereas these three variables here, labor, education expenditure, and also health expenditure, is not important factor that contribute to the real GDP. So lastly, from the F test here, so we'll see that this model is a good model since the F star is more than its critical value. So when it's more than critical value, then means that we have to reject H now. So all the variables, the 5 variables, are important determinants that can be used to determine real GDP in the model. Then to conclude, aforementioned GDP growth is vital in order to pursue continuous development and advancement for every nation. Thus, policymakers should pay more attention on its high population and also capital formation to boost its economic growth. Seen from the result that we have shows that the population and capital formation, these two variables are very important determinants that affect the real GDP. So despite the another 3 factors like the education spending, the high population should be accompanied with more educated and also capable labor force, and also educational reform in order to ensure that the every nation goes in the right direction, that is for better economic performance. Besides, capital formation can also be accumulated through the attraction of FDI, or foreign direct investment, to invest in Malaysia, as well as the technological advancement in order to maximize the capital productivity. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. Should you have any question, you can reach me via email emilda4221@gmail.com. So thank you very much. Bye bye. Have a nice day and also stay safe.